The illustrious one, J-Dog on the boards. We are looking at Monday, Thanksgiving week. Wow. Not a bad start to the day, J-Dog. I think it's kind of mild out there. A little bit of some of that, I guess, I wouldn't even call it ice, but a little bit of the signs of the overnight with like, I guess, I guess it is ice if you almost look. I guess we had a little bit of cold rain overnight. It'll freeze up. But hey, J-Dog, it's Monday of Thanksgiving week. Does it feel like that? I guess it does, right? Yep. Well, listen, I know you're busy running a bunch of stations in our show here. Let me take one thing off your list. I know you wanted to get me a Thanksgiving Day present, but don't worry about it, okay? What? What? All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Worldwide, play the pulse of NH. Like to say hi to a couple of our regular listeners. Margaret Culp's out there up in near Ossipee dealing with a coyote in her yard, looking at her dog. And I told her how to be careful, take some pots and pans outside, make some noise. All right, we have a packed show for you. A poll question up on up on X this morning at the Pulse of NH. Everything with us, the app, our podcast network, our poll question on X, the Pulse of NH. Do you think there'll be a real ceasefire, a stoppage of the war in the Ukraine by Thanksgiving this week? We'll see. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, saying we need a little more time. President Trump hoping that's the case, but even saying be careful here. Don't jump to conclusions. Ending a war, by the way. I'm just going to say some quick commentary. I love the critics. Oh, my goodness. Where would we be without critics? Already this week, looks like Russia wrote this thing. Well, maybe there are some pieces in there from Russia, President Zelensky, the U.S., but ending a war is ending a war, and even that can't be a good thing with some. All right, hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. Got a full show for you this morning. I'm going to tell you who's on as we pull out of the gate here for your news talk. We're going to hear from our friends at Citizens Count, Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors this hour. What about unemployment? Even though there was a good jobs report the other day. What about the debt, by the way? No one's talking about our debt. Isn't that interesting? Government shutdown. No one's talking about a 38.2 or plus $1 trillion with a T. All right, a little bit later on, we'll have some fun as well. J-Dog and CJ. J-Dog, I will say, I know CJ is going to be a lot bummed out on the Cowboys in overtime edging the Eagles in Dallas, but it was a kind of a fun game. And J-Dog, the Patriots was a tight, tough game to the end, and they continue their winning ways. But you and I were talking costly, a couple of their big protectors on the line out with bad knees at this time of year, J-Dog, including the blindside protector for Drake May, Mr. Campbell. Those are costly injuries if they are as bad as they looked. Wow. And then I think, do they get a bye after that, the Patriots? I think they do. Yeah, but guess what? You get a bad knee of a big guy, maybe they can come back, but if it's an ACL or anything like that, ouch. All right, we have what's that? Yeah, with a towel over his head, or I think that was him with the other guy. Yeah, it's just they've been, Patriots been playing some great football. All right, couple of the stories before we get to some of our regular contributors to talk about, and there is plenty to talk about this morning, by the way, plenty coming out of the weekend, including, by the way, including the Marjorie, what's her nickname, J-Dog? We'll come back. MTG resignation and the fallout, and oh my goodness, the post meeting in the Oval Office with the new mayor of New York City, all this stuff happening. We have a lot going on to talk about, no shortage as usual, but I wanted to get to a couple of the other stories this morning as we get going. And one of the stories I caught, and this is a little more profound to get you thinking, kind of the cognitive energizer for a Monday, but I saw this in Maine. And now the CBS affiliate in Boston. Massachusetts. So this is actually CBS News. So I don't know if they went beyond their affiliate, but David Wade, CBS Boston. You ready for this one? Really think about this. Think about this one for a moment. We're talking Massachusetts. Big state, a lot more population than New Hampshire, obviously. Border state, Massachusetts. I'm from there, the North Shore originally, had the good sense to move north. Massachusetts, with all their money in taxes, all the taxes. They even have like a success tax on millionaires down there now, income, sales, all the taxes. This is the headline, David Wade, CBS. This is interesting. And I saw this in Maine, same story, but in Maine. Why do so many Massachusetts cities and towns have a money problem? Despite new revenue, you ready for this? This is the article. From the legalized cannabis and the so-called the millionaire's tax, there's a fiscal crisis brewing in Massachusetts. The cities and towns don't have enough money, like public safety, buildings, police, fire, rescue. They don't have enough money. And they're asking a good question. Where is all the money? State of Maine. Saw the same story, might have been WMTW, one of the stations. Cities and town managers. They just passed all these taxes in Maine because they don't know how to cut under government, big government. Governor Mills' leadership in the legislature or Governor Healy in Mass. They're saying, where's all the money? State of Maine, they just raised taxes on everything from four-wheelers to hunting and fishing licenses, pensions, prescription medications, streaming audio and video like Netflix, or if you're listening to the streaming, 5.5%. Legalized cannabis. Oh, they're taxing everything in Maine. And you know what Maine and Mass have? This is the political miracle of our current year. Maine and Mass have an income and a sales tax. Let me repeat that. Mass actually has more than one income tax. Maine and Mass have an income and sales tax, and they have a millionaire's tax. And you know what? I have to laugh. New Hampshire has no income, no sales tax. Let me repeat that. No income, no sales tax. And I haven't seen. Now, there's never enough money, by the way. And I'm sure there are city and town managers in New Hampshire saying, Jack, we have tightness here too. I've read about it in Concord, but more with the schools, more with the public schools. I've read this. And obviously Claremont's a unique situation, uniquely disturbing situation on fiscal management. But the interesting thing is, the only thing you keep hearing in New Hampshire is people saying, yeah, but our property taxes are so high. Yeah, they are. And you know one reason why? It's not what the state legislature is giving cities and towns or not. And it's not about schools. It's because people from New York and Massachusetts are moving to New Hampshire and spending like a couple $1 million for a home that used to be $600,000. So what happens in Portsmouth and these towns across the state, they do what they call a property revalue. They revalue the properties. They do like a reevaluation of properties. And then they tell you, I love this in Portsmouth. They say, hey, our property tax rates aren't going up that much. Okay, rocket scientist, if you have a home that was worth 600 in today's market, because everyone's moving here, inflating the market, is now worth 1.3 million. You're paying more property taxes because your home just doubled in value. Good news if you want to sell it. Bad news where you're going to move. So a lot of New Hampshire and the coast of Maine's property, Maine with their income and sales tax, they have some of the highest per capita property taxes. Yep. But look at these stories you're starting to hear in Mass and Maine. Cities and towns running out of money. Where's all the money in the Mass and Maine with all their taxation and their engines of taxes? Governor Healy's real quick to yell at President Trump, do your job and get us home heating assistance. Do your job and get us SNAP food benefits. Governor Healy, do your job. You're spending $1 billion a year in the Bay State. A lot of B's there. You're spending $1 billion a year in the Bay State. Housing, transporting, health insurance, benefits, you name it, hotel rooms if need be for illegal immigrants. You're spending $3 million a year on homeless veterans. Why don't you spend some of your tax dollar money that's going to big government en masse? Your cities and towns are saying, "Where's the money, Governor Healy? You got a millionaire's tax. You're taxing cannabis. You're taxing everything that can move and walk in Massachusetts that's making you money, and you don't have enough money for your cities and towns." But how, Governor Healy, is it possible? Governor Mills in Maine, how is it even fiscally possible for the state of New Hampshire to survive without all these taxes on income and sales tax? How is it even possible? It's a modern day miracle. Or is it? Some commentary. All right, we got a full show for you. A little bit later on, Mike Dunbar says, count, hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H on this Monday, November 24th. We're about 18 minutes past the 9 a.m. hour. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of NH. Back in a moment. All right, we are back. We are back. Mike Dunbar, great contributor and part of Citizens Count with Anna Brown, citizenscount.org. Check out the site. Great bipartisan, nonpartisan home for all your civic engagement here in the Granite State and probably really beyond. Mr. Mike, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H. Yeah, well, it won't be hard at all. Not at all. People, it's funny. People ask me all the time, do you like when you're off? And no, I don't really. I'll talk with anyone civilly and respectfully, but I think it's kind of sad, isn't it? Really, because I grew up in a household where you could do that and not throw plates and bread and gravy at people. Today, I don't know. I think families purposely go out of their way. Things are so divisive and toxic to not even bring it up. Yeah, what's your take on all that? I thought it was um kind of what I expected, but even a little more I don't know, it was interesting to have the new mayor of New York City sort of standing next to the president sitting at the desk of the Oval Office, but they smiles on their face, friendly. That surprised a lot of people, didn't it? Well, what's interesting? People may not think this. Obviously, Mondami's a lot younger than President Trump, age wise, but they're both pretty good politicians, if you know what I mean. We had Jim Messina on my show, actually, our podcast, Mike, with Brad Card, Contact Politics, and he's really the top former President Barack Obama's political confidant, advisor, and friend and partner in business, Jim Messina. And he said people do not really understand, including Trump's adversaries, what a good politician and a counterpuncher he is. And I think the new mayor of New York City, people that want to write him off because of his socialism or socialist politics, are making a little bit of a mistake. He's a pretty talented politician. Yeah. Right. Right. I think there's a race underway right now. Mike Dunbar, citizenscount.org, before the midterms, less than a year from now. I don't people realize there's a foot race right now underway. Which party, to your point, the Democrats with this far left side of sort of more socialist. I saw a video of Representative Ocasio Cortez out walking in her boroughs in the Queens. Which party can convince or show, forget convince, because you can tell people inflation's coming down, or in the former administration, the Biden administration, you can tell people the economy is getting better, but people need to feel it and they need to see it. Which party can show hardworking people, and no offense to anyone out there, not people that are getting a lot of public support or subsidies. Forget, I'm talking blue collar, middle income Americans. What party can show them that things are getting more affordable, and how quickly can they message that and actually deliver it? Not say it, but actually deliver it. And I think that's the race for the midterms. And independent voters are going to say they're going to vote on that. And on November 5th, when it was Trump and Harris, younger and middle income people said, I think he's going to be better with the economy than her. And I think as much as ending the war in Ukraine is important, what's going on in the Middle East is important. What's going on at home for people right here who cannot afford a home, can't afford their mortgage, can't afford the electricity utility bill, can't afford anything right now. They want to see their money go further and they want to start feeling wealthier, even if it's by $500 a month after paying all the bills. That's what I think. Right. 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 Yep. No, I agree. Well, what's your take on this Maggie Goodlander and the other Democrats who posted the video that's now famous or infamous, drew the reaction of President Trump? It's still in the national news this morning about, hey, disobey certain orders, some of the commander in chief, the president, if you have questions about them or their legality or whatever. It really started a firestorm. My question is Maggie Goodlander. I think she served or Navy reservist, her husband's former security advisor for the Biden administration. She knows full well what the ramifications are and the chain of command. I don't want to get into this, but I, if you're the president, you're sending a Navy SEAL team into Syria for an extraction, crossing a lot of airspaces. You could technically say, even to rescue Americans, that's an ambiguous order, but they follow that order, and their life depends on it. So, but it's caused a political firestorm. Are you surprised that Maggie Goodlander is one of those six from New Hampshire, member of the second congressional district, or is this a good, hate to say it, Mike, political move in the second district ahead of, the midterms? Good point. Good point. Oh, she's gotten a ton of publicity. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head, Mike Dunbar. It's playing to the base. What else is catching your eye as we head into Thanksgiving? Anything else? It's well, there's plenty always to look at, talk about, think about. Anything else? It is. Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. Again, playing to the base. Mike Dunbar, Citizens Count, citizenscount.org. Thank you, Mike. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about what I was referencing in the segment before about the affordability and the irony or the reality of just New England. And I don't think people realize sometimes, but if you're moving from New York, if you're moving from New Jersey, if you're moving from these overtaxed, overregulated states, you get it. But I just would ask one favor because if you go to like Redfin, Realtor, but Redfin is the one that merged, I think, with Rocket Mortgage, and they do a lot of they use AI and do a lot of market trends. You can look up a town. You can go look up Moultonboro, Wolfboro, Portsmouth, Bedford, Nashua, Peterborough. You can look up trends. Where are people moving to based on like September, October sales, closings, right? You know, people when they buy and sell a home. And New York, I don't know if you know this, New York is number one moving here, not Massachusetts anymore. Last 20, 30 years, it was definitely Mass. Now it's New York. I know that sounds scary, right? A lot of people from Mass and New York moving here. But that's what, if you look at Redfin, the migration of new home sales, New York, Southern Maine, York, Berwick, Agunquit, New York, New York. And the question is, do the people moving from New York, are they going to remember after they lived in York, Maine, or Kittery, or Dover, or Portsmouth, or Rye, or Stratham? Are they going to remember once they've been here a year or two and say, oh, it's so nice not to be in New York. It's so nice to be here. Are they going to remember why they left there? Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment. All right, we are back. And John Decker, our own White House correspondent, joining us this morning. And John, political surprises as we head into Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving week. Good morning, John. Is this kind of stuff in politics, John Decker? You've covered a lot of White House. Is it somewhat politically inevitable where you'll see some of the staunchest alliances? Now, I'm going to point this out, it's a lot different. But you look at Elon Musk and President Trump when it started out with Doge, and I could look at past administrations where the late Colin Powell might have had a difference with GW. But is this inevitable with politics once you get in the once you get in the White House, these types of breakups or not? Well, let's be honest too. It really had to do almost everything with the Epstein files, and really that was the I guess the straw, if you will, John. All right. All right, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Thank you, John. I was just sharing some videos from my first hour here. We're getting a lot of feedback on all the social media posts, but um, it really is remarkable, or at least it should be, or someone enterprising in New England should do a story comparing the fiscal management of just pick, how about Mass, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont? What the heck? No offense, Rhode Island. No offense, Connecticut. Well, plenty of offense, but it was Dudley Moore in that great movie. Was it Arthur? It's kind of laughed about Rhode Island. No offense, Rory O'Neill, 24/7 national news correspondent, who's from Warwick, Warwick, Rhode Island. No, but my point is, someone regionally should do a real enterprising story on just the difference in government at the state level between Mass, Maine, and New Hampshire. Now, arguably, it's hard to compare, excuse me, Mass and New Hampshire just because of the size. New Hampshire is much smaller state. Yes, we have the White and Presidential Mountains. We have the wonderful Presidential Mountain Range, Franconia Notch, Crawford Notch. But what does Mass have? The Blue Hills. No offense. And they got a bigger coastline. But let's face it, Mass is a much bigger state physically and certainly in population. But Maine can be analogous. Maine's a good comparative. Even though Maine is physically much, much bigger than New Hampshire, we still kick the what out of Maine in terms of mountains. I mean, they do have Mount Katahdin, serious hike, by the way. I remember that was at the Knife's Edge or whatever that last part when I was a kid. The Mount Katahdin, Baxter State Park's beautiful, but we have more mountains, 4,000 footers. But Maine is a much, much bigger state, one of the longest coastlines, shorelines, most beautiful coast. I mean, all the way up to Lubec. Maine's a big state, but guess what? It's comparable because the population is about the exact same of New Hampshire. But it's amazing someone should do a piece on the way the state legislature operates with the governor. Concord, Augusta, Maine, and Beacon Hill. Someone should do a piece and look at all the taxes Maine just passed. No one really in Maine even gives a damn unless you're a taxpayer. I don't know, what are they, tone deaf with taxes in Maine, or is it just me? Or is it just south of Augusta? This big spending, uh, you know, flu is spread, so people are too numb to know the difference. State of Maine, they don't cut anything. They have an income and a sales tax, high property taxes per capita. State of Maine, do your own studies on Wallet and Wallet Hub and all these, but they just passed all these taxes, pensions, legal cannabis, streaming video and audio services, tobacco, ATVs, hunting and fishing licenses, prescription medications. Yeah, like 12 new taxes, income and sales tax. And the cities and towns are running out of money in the state of Maine. Massachusetts, much bigger state. But let's just stay with Maine and New Hampshire. So how is it? How is it even fiscally, legislatively possible for New Hampshire? Same, about 1.3 plus million people. Maine, just about the exact same. For New Hampshire to do it without a state income or sales tax. And Maine has all these taxes on top of state income and sales, all these new taxes. New Hampshire did not do that. How is it even possible? How is it even possible? I mean, Maine and Mass legalized cannabis. We haven't officially yet. I mean, cannabis is everything but fully legal here. But I mean, for recreational use, I guess it's not. Kelly Ayotte's against it. But how is it that Maine passes, legalized cannabis, Mass legalized all these taxes, plus an income and sales tax, and they're running out of money when the cities and town managers in Maine are waking up and they're saying, where's all the money? To Augusta, the state house. Where's all the money you folks are raking in on taxes? Where's all the money? That's a good question. Ask your governors and your lawmakers. Ask your governor and lawmaker, where's all the money? Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of Age. Come back. Doug Tengton, World Market Advisors, The Economy, next. All right, going to take a good look at the economy, and I've been breaking it down. Doug Tangdon, World Market Advisors. Doug, I do want to focus on employment, unemployment, if you will, what the Fed may or may not do by the end of the year. So let's start with that. But I do want to point out an irony that I'm starting to hear out of Maine and Mass. Good morning, Doug. Well, let's start with end of the, here we are, Thanksgiving. Happy pre-Thanksgiving. We're going to see another Fed rate cut or not? Yeah, but you know how it is. They never move ahead of when they need to. Yeah, but I'm going to ask you this: you don't get into you get into policy, but not politics. I just said this on my show, and you saw this in the previous administration. I know the Secretary of Treasury in the Trump administration has said this, but you can't tell the American people. And I want you to react to this the Doug Tangdon way. The stock market is reaching record highs, and core inflation is coming down. But you can't tell people who are middle income people that the cost of living is coming down because they know you're BSing them because they go out every day to pay that mortgage, to pay the utility bill, to buy groceries, and they know. And I just saw a new automobile now has never cost more. They know everywhere they look, Doug, things are unaffordable. You can talk about the market records and you can talk about rates coming down and inflation, but that's not what they're seeing in reality. So how do we get that down? We will see. Now, the other one I love your Doug Tegnan take on worldmarketadvisors.com, worldmarketadvisors.com. I've been noticing on local media, social media, but real like CBS News out of Massachusetts. There was a story, WMTW out of Maine recently, and they're the same stories, Doug. Cities and town managers are asking their state lawmakers and governors in Maine and Mass, where's all the money? We don't have enough money in our cities and towns to run our public safety stuff. And all these new taxes, where's the money? Now there's never enough money locally, Doug, and I'm not getting into the property tax debate and all that. My question is, New Hampshire has no sales and income tax. We didn't just raise 12 new taxes on everything from legal cannabis to streaming services to prescription meds to pension funds to hunting licenses. Where's all the money they're asking in Maine and Mass? That's a good question. Why are they asking it there when they have no shortage of revenue streams? Yeah. Yep. It must it it if you're the Democratic leader in the Maine State House or Governor Mills, it must drive them bonkers, absolutely bonkers, that New Hampshire didn't raise all these taxes, cut the business tax, no sales or income tax, and they're getting complaints from their cities and towns. Where's the money? All your taxes generate. Where is it? It must drive them bonkers. Thank you, Doug. All right. We'll make it again before Thanksgiving. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an Edge. Coming up, Brad Card. Tomorrow, our podcast guest will be available tomorrow afternoon. Spreaker, the Pulse of an Edge podcast network, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Contact Politics, Jack Heath, Brad Card. Mike Murphy has been on before, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. The national debt is another one that's fascinating. 38.2 trillion dollars. No party seems to give a damn. The national debt. We just went through this whole government shutdown. The Democrats were holding out, as they said, over the auspices of the Affordable Care Act subsidies renewal. And yet no one talks about saving Social Security or the debt. No one. No one seems to give a damn. I looked up my own numbers from my show here. Do you know that almost 2.5 times, certainly more than 2 times, the number of Americans who rely on Social Security to live? More Americans rely on Social Security by that number, like it's over 2, it's upwards of 100 million, than they do to rely on the Affordable Care Act to live in terms of health insurance. The number of people that are on the so-called exchange, the not affordable health care, many more people care about, or many more people who pay into Social Security, because it's not a subsidy, you pay into it, rely on Social Security. And yet no politician, neither party is talking about that right now. Tomorrow, our guest, Mike Murphy, he's got a budget group out of Washington, bipartisan, why the debt matters and why politicians don't have the backbone to address it, because it's all about getting elected. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Coming up top of the 10 o'clock hour next.